look at it. Honda Rebel 1100, but this one is an automatic. Is the 1100 better than the 300 or the 500? Does the automatic take away from the motorcycle riding experience? Stick around to the end of the video and we'll find out.
This is a great level of power. Feels so weird not operating a clutch. All right, first 30 seconds on the Honda Rebel 1100 DTC. There's no clutch. It's a very interesting experience. Obviously, I've ridden the Rebel 300, so Rebel to Rebel, it feels familiar. It feels like it's the same family. Ergonomically, I can see the similarities between them, but it's shifting for me. It's an automatic. It just takes off. The very first thing that I noticed is like the inputs are a little smoother than I expected. For some reason, I wanted this bike to be, I guess, a little jerky on takeoff. Maybe just like a not smooth, or like I feel like I could do a better job because, you know, clutch, but it takes off so smooth. A tiny bit of throttle input gets you going. It, like instantly when you get on it, it doesn't feel weird. It's weird not having something on my foot. It's weird not having a clutch lever, but in terms of actual feel of throttle and go, it's surprisingly smooth. The bike itself has significantly less vibration than the Rebel 300, for sure. The Rebel 300 feels a lot more buzzy than this bike does. I don't feel a lot of vibration in my hands. I feel a little tiny bit in the butt, I feel a tiny bit in my feet, not too much. And then this is an aftermarket seat, but for the most part, the actual seat itself, I don't feel any vibration in.
Ergonomically speaking, it's definitely a comfortable position. 90 at the hips, 90 at the knees, pretty much straight down, very solid mids. I'm 5'10" with a 32-inch inseam, and it is a very 90-90 comfortable position. If you're a little bit shorter, there's still plenty of room. It's not a far reach on the bars. I still have a solid bend in the elbow, and I'm slightly leaned forward a little tiny bit, personally, just from where I'm recording. But it's a very comfortable position, very approachable to a new rider. It's not demanding in any way, shape, or form. It lends itself to, if you're a little bit taller or you're a little bit shorter, I think you'd be fairly comfortable either way. This particular bike has a slip-on exhaust that sounds glorious. Take a listen. The front brake on this thing really does get the job done. It is this big of a rotor on a single-sided 4-piston caliper. More than adequate for the size and the style of riding that this bike demands.
But as it sits right here, right now, city cruising, 44 miles an hour, cruising 4th gear, the bike is comfortable, the bike is soft. The brakes are more than adequate. They are cruiser brakes, right? They're not gonna have the most bite, but they stop you when you get deep into the actual lever pull. I think that these are very reasonable brakes. I don't think that it needs more brake for the bike. I think that these are more than adequate for the type of bike that this is and for the type of riding that you're gonna do.
This is an aftermarket Memphis shade screen, but
I don't feel anything but from, I guess, my collar, my neck, right here and below is all blocked, and then I got a full gust of wind at my neck-ish, and then the rest of my helmet. I can feel the wind going around me. It's on my arm, so it's blocking a lot of my body. I just don't feel that weight on me. It feels pretty comfortable. Obviously, without the windscreen, I'd be getting a clean gust of air, but strangely enough, this tank is rather high comparatively speaking to where you sit, so it would still block a decent amount of wind.
As far as tech is concerned, as you can see, screen right there, LCD, fairly legible, but right there you can kind of tell that there is a little bit of a glare. You do notice that while you are out riding. It's a lot worse on camera than it is in person, but you do get a little bit of a glare on it. Pretty basic screen. You have your RPM, speedo, gear, and then your power modes. This thing does have a couple of different power modes. It's in a custom mode right now. Neutral, drive, automatic, and manual. Manual being the clicker buttons that are on the other side. And then you have cruise control built in on this guy. Over here, you have your downshift, upshift button on the other side up here, high-low beams, and a little way to scroll through the lower end menu on the screen. With dual remote reservoir Shoei shocks in the back. Preload adjustable Shoei front forks, and they feel like this.
As far as the suspension is concerned, it's absorbing all these bumps, so this has that kind of up and down for most bridges, and I genuinely don't feel it. The suspension is pretty soft and compliant. I believe it's like 4 inches, almost 4.7 inches. So very similar to a naked bike in suspension travel in the front. And it's a very soft, comfortable ride. I can sit on this for a very, very long time and not have absolutely any issues whatsoever. Handling on this bike, however, is actually pretty interesting. The bars are pretty tall, so it's light up top, easy to flick into the turn. I mean, 6th gear, we're going basically 70 through this big sweeper, and it's good for sporty riding. It leans in pretty effortlessly. It feels like it has a good lean angle. The bars themselves are very open to input. You don't feel like you're fighting the bike. It handles very lightly. It's effortless, kind of back and forth. You just push in on the bar and the bike goes. It does what you want it to. You're not fighting the bike. It's not falling into the turn. It's not taking you there, but it dances with you the way that you want to dance. It's not something that's going to fight you. You don't have to fight it. It's not going to help you, but it's also fairly effortless and easy to input. It does feel a little bit more top heavy than the 300, but it's not a very large distinguishable difference. The 300 feels a little bit more flicky because it's a little bit lighter of a motor, a little bit lower down. Obviously, this being a parallel twin, the weight's a little bit taller, but it's like a marginal difference, maybe a 10 to 15% difference, to where unless you ride it back to back, you're not going to notice the difference. So in terms of actual inputs and flickability, this definitely has it, and it seems to have a pretty good lean angle. I like it, man. It's an overall solid bike.
Now it's time we take a second to talk about this thing, the 1100cc parallel twin that makes this thing go that way.
Power, 2nd gear, 4,000 RPMs. Oh man. Dude, this is a great level of power. 100%. It carries all the way to redline, about 8,000 RPMs. It pushes you back in the seat. You have to hold on to the bar. This seat did a great job keeping me still, keeping me in place. But it's like right around that 100 horsepower, just below that 100 horsepower, is a great level of acceleration. That's where you begin to feel it in your body. That's where you have to hold on. I think this is a great level of power. It has good torque. It's even. Strangely enough, most twins die out at the top, and I didn't feel it. But again, this isn't revving that high. It's revving to 8, which is where most twins kind of tend to die out. So it's like using the perfect portion of its power band to actually propel you forward. I think the power band on this bike is awesome, and I think it's fairly approachable for a confident newer rider. I don't think that it's too much power for someone unless you are a timid new rider, in which case, yeah, don't go full send. Oh yeah, middle power. It's peppy. Of course, it's an 1100cc twin, but it's peppy. That mid-range RPM has good carry. It's effortless. I was at maybe 10 to 15% throttle, and it carries. This engine feels like it has a lot of torque. I know that it's almost 90 horsepower and 50-ish foot-pounds of torque, maybe a little bit more, but it's very effortless. The power delivery is friendly, but this is a great travel power level. If you're looking to take this bike and do commuting, if you're taking this bike around town and you have middle speeds, so we're talking 50, 60, 70 miles per hour. I know some of that is highway speeds, but the lower end of that is kind of like spirited city riding, at least where I'm from here in Florida. That is an awesome power band. It carries very nicely. It doesn't feel like you're stressing the bike out. It doesn't take a lot of throttle input. Right around 4,000 RPM, you feel a little extra pickup in the power band. I guess that's really when it sits into the power band. I think this is a good level of power. Personally, the 300, if you're a more scared, timid rider, that may be a better bike for you, because obviously it's a little bit more friendly to ride. It's a little bit more approachable. It does go 85, as you guys saw in the video. If you watched it, if not, click it below. But this bike definitely has way more carry. It has way more power. It has room for you to grow. And with a little bit of throttle input, it's not upsetting. Especially if you keep it in automatic mode and let the transmission do the work, it's gonna keep you at lower gears unless you ask for it, which obviously giving it throttle.
but it's an automatic. Real motorcycles don't come in automatic. Does it take away from the experience of actually riding a motorcycle?
On the downshifts, you can feel the click of the gear, but it doesn't upset the bike. You can't free rev at red lights unless you put it in neutral though, because if you twist the throttle a little bit, like right here, it starts to take off. The transmission on this thing, like most automatic transmissions, it wants to shift early. I mean, I'm going 40 miles an hour almost, and I'm in 6th gear, whereas if I was shifting myself, I would be in 3rd. Like the bike would, I wouldn't be at this low of an RPM basically ever. But that's true for most automatic transmissions, even on cars. Obviously they want to get to 6 as soon as possible, and if you're driving lightly and you're giving a little bit of throttle input, it does cycle through the gears pretty quick. But on the back side of that, when you flip the throttle and you start going, it does downshift pretty quick. Like it'll jump 2 gears, I think faster than you can or I can as an individual. When we get to the highway, I'll show that a lot better, but it's more intuitive than I expected. See, look at that. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. So it cycles through all the gears fairly quickly. All right, so here's what I was saying. 60 miles an hour, 6th gear. I'm gonna give it a lot of throttle and it'll actually downshift pretty easily. 5th, 4th. See, that's quick. And then now it's in 4th gear because we're at higher RPMs. I didn't do that. There it goes. Now we're back in 6th, just cruising. Dude, it feels so weird not operating a clutch. It feels like I'm missing something. Obviously, I've never ridden a motorcycle with an automatic transmission, so it's gonna feel different. But this is like, it's smooth. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just feel like there's a part of my brain that's not working right now. And it's an interesting feeling that I did not expect. Like coasting, like I feel like I should need to pull my clutch into like coast. I feel like I should be doing something with my foot. It's just like one side of my body is working and the other isn't. It's so weird. Throttle, brake, and then over here there's nothing. Like this side of my body is not doing anything. It's smooth. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's different. Let's put this thing in manual mode so I can shift myself. All right, so I am now shifting myself. Let's see what happens. Oh, you see? That's more like it. Give me a little bit of rev, shift again. That's it, man. Even if I'm not doing it with my foot, it's nicer just to like hold the gears. It feels more natural. Obviously, as riders, we don't try to be in as low an RPM as possible. We try to be in a high RPM or a middle RPM as you're driving through traffic. Like the automatic transmission in this situation would be 42 miles an hour, 6th gear. But I'm chilling, 4,000 RPM, 3rd gear. I have power to go. I can shift up if I need to. It's still like a good pace. Like I feel like me selecting the gear makes me just feel more at home. Obviously this is an automatic issue because I feel the same way in cars and whatever manual vehicles there are, but I prefer to select the RPM range because I would rather sit in a lower gear at a higher RPM than in a higher gear at a lower RPM. Just me cruising. It makes the acceleration feel effortless and it takes less input when you're at the right RPM range. Yeah, this is way more homey, that's for sure. Yeah, and this thing shifts like 5th to 6th. I literally don't feel it at all. All of the other gears, there's a slight little bump, like a little bump that I feel, but 5, 6, I don't feel anything. Let's see on the way down. 6, 5, better than a quick shifter. In terms of actual shifting and the way that it feels and the way that the bike responds, this automatic feels better than a quick shifter on the way down. 5, 4, yeah, I can tell that it got into gear, but other than that, I don't feel much of a jerk, much movement. 4, 3, I didn't even feel that really. It's instant, it's responsive. Like as soon as you click it, the transmission does exactly what you want it to do.
Final thoughts as I wrap up my day with the Rebel 1100. Strangely enough, It's faster than I expected it to be. The shift is more intuitive, and I fully understand that you can adjust it to shift a little bit later and stay higher in the RPMs, or shift a little bit earlier in the RPMs. But overall, where it sits, dead middle, it seems like a pretty intuitive ride. It downshifts when you give it acceleration. I genuinely don't think that it takes away from the experience of riding a motorcycle. If you are not comfortable with a clutch and a manual transmission, I think this is a great starting point. I personally prefer a clutch, but this doesn't take away from the experience, and I don't think that is any less of a motorcycle because it's an automatic. I genuinely think that this is a fun ride, and for certain people that may not have full control of their left hand, it is a great alternative and something that could possibly get you back into riding for the right person. If you guys like this review of the Rebel 1100 and want to check out what I think about the Rebel 300, click this video right here. Once again, want to take the time to thank Robert, same guy that let me ride the 101, also got this thing. Very interesting collection, right? A Scout 101 and then a Rebel 1100 automatic. Thank you, brother. Without you, this wouldn't have been possible. So I greatly appreciate it, my man.